Hello everybody, Tony Boland here, DigitalThinker. We decided to make a video to show you everything you need to know about barcoding. Everybody loves barcoding. It avoids mistakes. When you fat finger your keypad or you read a number wrong, you get it wrong. Barcoding speeds up your processes of getting parts out of stock. So we've made a video that's going to show you how to install barcoding software and then how to use it. Hope you like it.
Our first step in setting up EAM barcoding is that we need to head over to the Infor support portal. This requires that the user obtaining the application to have an Infor support login with valid credentials. It's also important to note that this guide is going to focus in on the latest version of EAM and barcoding application, which is currently 11.4 for both. So as we head over to our Infor support portal, we need to enter our valid credentials, which is our email address and password, and then hit sign in. Once we're here in the Infor support portal, we head up to our header and go to downloads and select products. At which point in time we need to select the Enterprise Asset Management link and then select Infor EAM Enterprise Edition DS7i. And on this list, make sure that we have the newest version of our Infor EAM barcoding that we're going to select. Now here's a file name that we want to download and place at a safe location on our workstation. So we want to download this ISO file by hitting the down arrow, and you'll notice that it's going to place it on our workstation for a place that we can access later to install. Our next step is we have some additional prerequisites in setting up the EAM barcoding. And one of those is our Internet Information Services that we need to go make some adjustments to in our control panel. So let's head over to our control panel on our workstation, and then we want to select Programs and Features, and then we want to turn on the Windows feature on or off. Select this link in our upper left-hand corner of our screen. And this is going to open up a dialog box here, and we're going to make some adjustments to our Internet Information Services checkboxes here. What I like to do is open this up a little wider so we can have a better look. I'm going to go through these fairly slowly because there's a dozen or so boxes that we need to make sure that need to be checked. So the first section under here is Web Management Tools. We want to make sure these boxes are selected. And then under Worldwide Web Services, we're going to expand that out and expand out the application development features. And we want to make sure these boxes are checked. Continuing on to the common HTTP features, select these boxes. This one was already selected. Under Health and Diagnostics, make sure we have HTTP logging. Under Performance Features, Static Content Compression. And then under Security, make sure we have Request Filtering selected. Once we're done, we can select the OK. Your workstation might take a second as it's applying the changes that you've made here. I'm not going to apply those right now. I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel. So we want to check one other prerequisite, and that's in regards to our default printer that we have on the workstation. This is the printer we're going to use to print labels with. Okay, so I'm going to stay at my control panel, and I'm going to go to my hardware and sounds about my devices, and I'm going to look for my printer and make sure that that device is installed properly with the right driver. So right now I have a default printer set up as my Office Jet. I'm looking for a Zebra printer, which is here. And again, I want to emphasize the point, make sure that it is installed properly, that the proper driver is on the printer, and that you've tested it and that it can print labels out. So what we want to do here is just right click, and I want to set as my default printer. And once that's done, I'm good to go. Now that we've downloaded the ISO file from the Infor support portal and our prerequisites are in place, we're now ready to begin the installation process of EAM barcoding software. So in order to do that, we need to locate that ISO file that we downloaded before. It's sitting on my desktop, so I'm going to open up that folder with that ISO file, highlight it, right click, and select Mount. Opens up my setup folder. Double click it, and then I'm going to highlight barcoding setup, but I also want to right click this and run this as an administrator. When you run as an administrator, you might get a pop-up window that asks you if you want to proceed. Just select yes. The installation shield wizard will continue. So what we want to do here, select next, and then there's the license agreement. We'll go ahead and hit yes. Then we need to put in our username and then a company name, and then install this application. By default, it says anyone who uses this computer can use the barcoding application. We're going to leave that selected and then hit next. And then this is our destination location for our file path. We'll just leave this as our default location. If you want to change this, you can select the browse button to change your location. And we'll hit next. And then we'll keep the setup type as complete. Move to our next step. And then hit next again. And for folks running Windows 10, you might see this error message occur during this phase of the installation process. Just hit retry and it should move forward. Then after this installation process is complete, you'll see a screen telling us it was set up, and then we can hit the finish button. Now that the barcode application has been installed, we must configure it to work with your environment. So there's a few steps we need to complete in order for the application to successfully link to EAM itself. So the first thing we need to do is open up the Infor barcode application. And if you like, you can create a shortcut on your desktop by holding the left part of your mouse down and dragging this onto your desktop. And I'm going to double click this to open up the application. So first place I'm going is the server settings, and we need to fill in these 5 fields here. This one's already pre-populated for me. I'm going to put in my user ID and password that I use to log into EAM. And then we need to put in our organization, and then our connection ID, which is sometimes referred to your tenant ID, which is typically like TRN or PRD for production. And then we can test these server settings by selecting the test connection button and then hitting test. And it should look like this once you run that test. Now I'll make a note here is that if folks that are using Windows 10, occasionally we'll get a failed connection or the application will freeze. Later in the video, I'll show you some other ways to check that and validate that connection. But for right now, we're just going to close this out. Next thing we need to do is check our printers. So we'll go to our printers, and this is just a list of printers associated with my desktop here. I'm going to highlight my Zebra 90 printer, and it opens up another window that says visible printer list and hidden printer list. I just want my barcode Zebra printer to be here visible. I'm going to take these other ones and move them over to my hidden printer list by highlighting them and using the arrow to move to my right. And once I'm done with this, I'll hit close. And so to save the settings here and for the printer, we need to come up to the upper left-hand corner and hit the floppy disk to save this. So next thing we're going to do in our Infor EAM barcoding app is we're going to create templates inside the application. So we need to head over to our menu at the top and hit templates. And we have 3 tabs we're going to walk through. We're going to create a template with a data source. We're going to go through the page layout and the label design, or how we want our label to look and what information we want on it. Our first step would be to select a data source. So if we're printing labels for parts, we could select parts. If we're printing a label for a piece of equipment, we could select equipment. For this example, we're going to do one for parts. And so I need to give my template a name. Once I'm done, I'll hit submit. And as we move through these tabs up here, my recommendation is that you save your work as you move forward. And you can do this in the upper left hand corner by hitting this disk button here in the save. I'm going to go ahead and hit it. And this tells me that I have that the file was saved to this particular path. So I can hit OK and continue to move forward. So the next tab is our page layout. So if we're creating a custom type of label, we want to make sure that our label format is highlighted under custom. There are a list of predefined labels here in the label format. Just make a note that if you select a predefined label, you are not able to make edits to this information in terms of its page margin, the number of labels across and down, dimensions, spacing, etc. So if we're doing a custom label, we can make the changes here. For example, I want 3 labels across and 2 down. I can change the margin, the spacing, etc. And then the print type. If it's single sheets of labels, you would keep this selected. If it's a continuous roll of labels, you would select this. Okay. So moving forward, I want to save my information. I'll hit the save button. And then we're going to move on to Label Designer. So in this section where it says Label and Text Property, the really important thing I want to point out here is this drop-down box for symbology. We recommend that you keep it at code 128. Reason being is that this is a high-density linear barcoding symbology language that creates barcodes in an alphanumeric or numeric only form. So it's the national default symbology for creating barcodes and really has the most flexibility. So changing this could create issues when attempting to print barcodes within your environment or with your printer. Okay, so leaving this at 128 is highly recommended. So what we want to do now is we want to design the label, and that's adding fields or information that we want to have come out on our label. So in order to do this, our first step would be to add a field here. And this is kind of a dual screen thing. I added a line. Now I need to tell it what information that line needs to contain. So I have several options here for a drop down. So I'm going to select part, which is my part number. And there's some check boxes here. I want it to display the barcode for the part number, and then display the label for part. I need to move this over to the print field, and once I'm done, I'll hit submit, and you'll notice here in my preview I have my barcode for my part number, and then the display label which says part. If we want to add another field, for example, let's say description, I'll go back through the process and hit add field. I'll go through and select description. I don't want to display a barcode, but I want to display the label, and I want to display the value. And I need to add this to the print field over here and then hit submit, and you'll see it shows up in my preview. So you can continue to do this and put as much information or data that you wish to show on a label that you like. And when you're done, make sure that you hit the save button. It saves it, and that should be the data that you have on your label. So the final step after we have created our template is to print our labels. So in order to do that, we need to head over to our menu at the top here where it says batch printing, and select it. And then you'll notice that the template we just created called Parts Labels Storeroom 1 is selected. We have our data source. And then over in this area here, we have a filter section, and you can set whatever parameters or constraints that you want, and it operates similar to how you utilize Data Spy in EAM. So if I wanted to have a part number that, let's say, begins with 100, that could be part of my criteria. I'm going to go ahead and do just a preview of what it looks like. It might pull a significant. So here is a preview of my labels, the template that I created, three labels per row, 2 rows. And when I'm ready to print, I hit the printer icon. It's got my default printer, a Zebra 90, and I hit OK, and off you go. You can print your barcode labels now.
Thank you for watching our video. I hope it's helpful. If you would, hit the subscribe button on the bottom of your screen. If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out to DigitalThinker.com.